I was going through my books the other day, realizing that I have too many and need to part with a few. Came across something that reminded me of a time in sixth grade. Now, Miss Young was new to our school that year, and not immediately my favorite teacher. She could be a little stern, a little businesslike. She was a fine teacher. I'll tell you later more about that, but she was just such a departure from Mr. Christensen that we'd had the year before. He was kind of a smooth, happy-go-lucky guy, newly married, and just always a smile on his face. He drove a car, by the way, Richard, if you're listening. He had a car just like the one you had back then. It was a yellow and white 55 Bel Air sedan, a four-door. Beautiful car. Of course, that made points with us guys. Miss Young, however, wasn't quite so fun, but she got us at about age 12, 11 and 12, and we're starting to be different kind of people then. We're a little troublesome. I recall that kind of coming on in our class. That wasn't her fault. But to be to the point here, one day she decided to read to us a book. And she did. She read that to us in class. I think she might have had a little reading in the morning and maybe one in the afternoon. I don't remember that. But it was so fun, and we quite enjoyed this experience, and she could tell a good story. I should point out here, I wanted to tell you, I owe her immensely for detecting that I had bad eyes. I was 11, was having trouble seeing the chalkboard, and I worked up the courage to tell her, and she moved me to the front, and that still didn't help enough, so she figured out a way to tell my mother, and so that's, I owe that to her, that she saw that I could see better, and I didn't know. My parents wouldn't have known, and so I've been wearing glasses ever since. And there was no stigma attached to that. I think there were probably half our class wore glasses back then. But anyway, back to the book. She read this book, and when she got done with it, she decided to let us choose the next book. Not only that, but she would let us bring our favorite books from the books in the room or the library or from home. We could bring up any book we wanted, and we would vote on that then. The class would vote on it. Well, I had not long before that finished a really good book that had been a gift to me from my Aunt Betty, and I dearly loved my Aunt Betty. Although this choice of books to me didn't impress me at first, it was about Tarzan, and I don't know, I just wasn't the Tarzan type. Now, I loved the cowboys, I loved these TV characters, I loved Zorro. If you don't remember, Zorro in 1957, 1958 was played by Guy Williams, and for those 2 years, they were in black and white, and, he was an awesome Zorro, the best Zorro we've ever had. Zorro was dashing, he was elegant, he was smooth, he was a man of mystery, seemed to have money and influence, and he wore a mask and a hat and a cape, and he could do this with the sword, and oh man, he was just my kind of guy. But Tarzan, no, I didn't understand Tarzan, but I read this book. After all, the cover was super cool. It was called Tarzan, the Forbidden City, and I remember looking at that cover and thinking, yeah, maybe there's something to this. And I was pleasantly surprised that it was a sensational story. Tarzan, the Forbidden City. And it was a good-sized book. Edgar Rice Burroughs, for those of you who are trivia-minded. And so I took that book to sixth grade reading class, and I showed that to Miss Young, and Oh, by the way, she later became Mrs. Ancombe, and she married Don. And Don was a cousin of my mother's. It's a long story. But I don't think she was real impressed with that. But nonetheless, she invited all of us who brought books to the front of the class. It was probably a Tuesday because she reminded us Monday and reminded us Friday, and Monday wouldn't work because Monday's always a day we forget stuff. So there we were. It was Tuesday, and so I timidly got to the front of the room and I told why I thought it was a good choice. We only were given like 30 seconds, mercifully. And so, with what little I could tell, without giving away you just told what you could. So, to my surprise, the class voted for my book. Miss Young, however, I'm pretty sure by her look and rolling of the eyes, body language, told me she would have much preferred Marilyn's book or Nancy's. But, so she agreed to, that was the deal. We all voted and we were going to read what the class wanted. And so we read Craig's book. And it was a lot of fun. To my surprise, the class liked it. We sat on the edges of our chairs, and so to speak. And even Miss Young actually got into this story. I was impressed that she liked this story so much. And she'd come to the end of a chapter, and she got to the point where she was dramatizing it a little bit, and she kind of got into the voices. And she'd end the chapter, and she'd say, well, okay, till tomorrow. And we'd all holler, no, read some more, come on, you can't stop here. And sometimes she gave in and read more. And so that's part of my reason for talking to you today. Give me a bit of break with some coffee. I'll be right back.